Welcome. We're going to get our information session started. I'm Nancy Von Euler. I'm Vice President of Programs at Fairfield County's Community Foundation, and I'd like to welcome you to our information session for prospective grant applicants. As a Fairfield County nonprofit, you're an essential partner in our mission to build and sustain a vital and prosperous community where we all have the opportunity to participate and thrive. We hope this session will help you better understand our competitive grant-making priorities, policies, and processes. Most of the information we'll share with you today is on our website, so we encourage you to read and explore the website carefully before you submit your letter of inquiry or application. We're also recording this webinar, and we'll be posting it to the website so that you can view it again if you wish. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. On the right side of your screen, you should find a task pane. This is where you can type in questions and submit them. If you don't see the task pane, look for and click on the small red arrow in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. That should open the pane for you. The pane may close after several minutes of inactivity, so just click on the arrow again to reopen it. You can submit questions at any time. We have a moderator who will be gathering and organizing questions throughout the webinar, and we will try to answer them all at the end of our presentation. You'll be able to continue to submit questions throughout the question and answer period. You can also let us know about any immediate technical issues you're having through the question function, and we'll reply to you directly. We will not be using the hand-raising function for this webinar. To get started, I'd like to introduce you to the program team who will be co-presenting this information session and/or responding to questions at the end. This is the team you'll work through the grant application, award, and reporting process. First, I'd like to introduce you to Alexis Bivens. Alexis is the director of our Thrive by 25 initiative. Although she's not directly involved in the grant-making process anymore, she works closely with the rest of our program team to ensure that our grant-making strategy for Thrive by 25 is aligned with and supporting the rest of our work in this area. Alexis has been with the Community Foundation for almost 4 years. An interesting fact about Alexis, she has worked in Fairfield County for 10 years, but she lives an hour away in New Haven County. She survives the traffic by bringing a giant cup of tea with her. Carol Guernsey is our Arts and Culture Fund Manager. We were thrilled to have Carol join us more than a year ago in September of last year. And a fun fact about Carol, she is an artist herself and loves to paint. In fact, she painted her son's closet door to look like platform 9 3/4 from Harry Potter fame. Tricia Hyacinth is the director of the Fund for Women and Girls. She's been with the Community Foundation for almost 5 years. She is a food lover and a pescatarian convert, and she'll eat just about anything, providing it doesn't moo, baa, quack, cluck, or neigh. She also said hiss or oink when I asked hiss or cockadoodle, but I'm trying to think about who eats things that hiss. Alex Casada is our new associate for the Fund for Women and Girls. Prior to that, she served as an assistant for the Fund for Women and Girls, and she works very closely with Tricia in her new role. She's been with the foundation for 3 years, and she loves growing heirloom tomatoes and making jams. Unfortunately, Alex is on vacation this week, so she will not be participating in this webinar, but feel free to reach out to her if you have questions related to grant making for the Fund for Women and Girls. Elizabeth Gehring has been expertly filling in as our interim program associate for education and youth development, and handling all the related grant making in that area. A fun fact about Elizabeth, she played the string bass in community orchestras until her mid-20s, and she continues to do so in her dreams. Sharon Jones is our program administrative assistant. We'll be sharing her contact information at the end of the webinar because Sharon will be your first point of contact for questions having to do with the competitive grant process. Sharon has been with the foundation for almost 9 years. In fact, she has an anniversary coming up. Congratulations, Sharon. So you are in very good hands with her. A fun fact about Sharon, she loves to sing, but she claims she only sounds good in the shower, and someday we're going to test that. Also helping us out on this webinar is Elaine Mintz, who serves as our Vice President of Operations and the Director of our Center for Nonprofit Excellence. She's going to be moderating our question and answer session at the end of the webinar. Elaine has been with the foundation for almost 5 years, and I'm going to share a fun fact about Elaine and myself at the same time. Elaine and I both grew up riding horses in Connecticut, and shortly after we started working together, we discovered that we had probably crossed paths at some of the local horse shows that we both regularly attended when we were kids. RJ Mercedes is the Center for Nonprofit Excellence Associate, and he's providing tech support for this webinar. So if anything goes wrong, we're going to blame him. Just kidding, RJ. RJ has been with the Community Foundation for almost 2 years. And fun fact about RJ, or exciting news about RJ, is that he was married in September. So he's a newlywed. RJ is also our contact at the foundation coordinating Giving Day. So many of you probably know RJ in that capacity. And now I'm going to hand you over to Alexis Bivens, who's going to talk about what we fund through our competitive grant-making program. Alexis is going to be walking you through our results framework. So before I hand it over, I just wanted to highlight that our adoption of RBA, Results-Based Accountability, or RBA, requires us to continually reflect on the results and strategies we're pursuing and to identify when adjustments are necessary. We've put a process in place to consider changes we need to make to the framework at the end of each fiscal year. And this fiscal year, we have made several changes to the framework. The first is that we've eliminated the results area for a healthy and productive Long Island Sound. This was a very small grant area for us, and we realized that the limited grant dollars we were awarding in this area were not adequate to support the strategies we identified or drive towards the result we were seeking. That said, there will continue to be funding opportunities within the Thrive by 25 results area for programs that provide education, internship, and employment opportunities to develop youth through a focus on the environment. The second change is that after a strategic review by the leadership of the Fund for Women and Girls, we have made changes both to the results statement and to the underlying strategies in that area, which we'll walk you through in just a minute. Lastly, we added a results area related to strengthening nonprofits. This will not be a new area of grant making for the foundation, but the results framework is meant to reflect all of our community leadership work, and so we think it is important that it reflect the results we are seeking and the strategies we are employing through the important work of our Center for Nonprofit Excellence. And now, finally, I'm going to hand you over to Alexis Bivens.
And thank you, Nancy. So on your screen, you'll see a screenshot of our website. I want to start by highlighting that all of the information I'm going to present in this section is available in the grant section of our website under the heading, What We Fund. The Community Foundation, as Nancy said, has adopted RBA, or Results-Based Accountability, as a framework for articulating and measuring the change we hope to see for our county. In the process of adopting RBA, what we used to call program or priority areas has shifted to being described as the 5 results we are seeking, all of which we believe contribute to our overall desired outcome, a vital and inclusive Fairfield County where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. We really want to hear how you are contributing to the selected results. One quick note about how we evaluate applicants. Our process team looks closely at an organization's alignment with our strategy, the organizational capacity, and the program design when deciding on whether or not to invite an applicant. We are also looking at the organizations that are reaching beyond just service delivery, as in the case of Cradle to Career initiatives. If you are an organization delivering services in Bridgeport, Norwalk, or Stanford, we would like to see you connected to Bridgeport Prospers, Norwalk Acts, or Stanford Strives, respectively. After identifying our overarching result in the 5 result areas you see in blue, we believe contribute to that result, we went a step further and identified these strategies that could help get us to these results. We acknowledge that there are many worthy and important strategies aside from the 5 we have identified, but we tried to zero in on the strategies where we thought we could make a difference through our competitive grant making and community leadership. We award competitive grants to local nonprofits that are addressing our 5 result areas and are aligned with the strategies we've identified. I'm going to take a moment to walk through these with you now. Our first result statement, all Fairfield County youth thrive by age 25, is a long-term result supported by the following 3 strategies: increasing educational opportunities for underserved populations, increasing youth employment opportunities, and promoting youth development. The second result area, all Fairfield County women and girls are economically secure, healthy, and safe, is supported by the following 6 strategies, specifically for women and girls: improving education and employment prospects, improving life skills, promoting leadership development, increasing behavioral health, increasing reproductive health services, and increasing safety. The third result area is all Fairfield County households are economically secure. This result area has strategies focused on increasing employment opportunities, promoting housing solutions, increasing financial security, increasing affordable, effective, community-based health, mental health, and supportive services. One quick note to just remind you of that we did drop a healthy and productive Long Island Sound and added the long-term work that the Center for Nonprofit Excellence does under this newest headline strategy: Fairfield County benefits from an effective nonprofit sector. Under this result, strategies are to increase the organizational capacity and sustainability of the nonprofit sector, to promote leadership development within the nonprofit sector, and to increase collaboration among nonprofits. And our fourth is Arts and Culture for Everyone in Fairfield County. Outlines the following strategies, and I apologize for skipping order here: increasing access to arts and culture, increasing arts education that prepares everyone for life success, and increase programmatic and operational capacity of the arts and culture section. Again, you will find a hyperlink to this results framework on our website in the What We Fund section. Just click on the words, our 5 result areas, which will be in blue type. As you work through our LOI, you will notice a box to indicate your own strategy by selecting Other. We anticipate applicants will note any creative and innovative strategies here. As a last piece of advice, please indicate the strategy that is priority for you rather than a check-all. To save yourself time, speak to a program officer if you are unsure where you may fit. For more information regarding results-based accountability, visit the Implementation Guide website you see on the screen. We will also be hosting an RBA Basics training on January 21st in Westport. You'll have more information and details about that training later in our webinar. And now I'm going to pass it over to Tricia, who is going to walk you through the types of grants we award.
Thanks, Alexis. So here's another screenshot from our website. All of the information I'll present is located in the grant section of the website under the heading Types of Grants. We award 3 types of competitive grants to Fairfield County nonprofits. The first is Program Support Grants. These grants are awarded for specific programs and services that contribute to one of our 5 result areas and their corresponding strategies. The Community Foundation prioritizes requests from organizations that are results-oriented and have capacity to measure and evaluate the impact of their work. Performance measures for program support requests focus on the impact of that program on clients or customers served by the program. The second is capacity building support grants. These grants are primarily for nonprofits previously funded by Fairfield County's Community Foundation, whose work aligns with our 5 result areas. These grants are awarded to support specific projects intended to strengthen high-impact and/or high-potential Fairfield County nonprofits so they can achieve their goals more effectively and sustainably. Examples of capacity-building requests include strategic planning support, performance measurement, executive transition planning, financial assessment and scenario planning, technology development, staff development, and board development. Note that we do have a small pool of funding available specifically to support financial management capacity requests. Performance measures for capacity building grantees focus on the impact of that project on the organization and its internal customers, such as staff, board, etc. Lastly, we fund general operating support grants. General operating support grants are by invitation only. They are reserved for highly effective organizations that are critical to the achievement of one or more of our 5 result areas. Only nonprofits that have previously funded or have been previously funded by our Community Foundation and have a proven track record of effectiveness and impact will be considered for this type of grant. If you are interested in being considered for a general operating support grant, please contact your program officer during an open letter of inquiry period. Each type of grant has a different letter of inquiry and application. Be sure to pick the right one when you begin your letter of inquiry, because in our online system, once you have applied for a particular type of grant, we cannot move you to another type of grant. Please consult with a staff member if you are unsure of the type of grant you should be applying for. In addition to our competitive grants, the Fund for Women and Girls offers small grants. The Small Grants program will launch officially on our website tomorrow. Nonprofits seeking funding through the Small Grants program must demonstrate how they are helping Fairfield County women and girls live economically secure, healthy, and safe lives. Funding through our Small Grants program is specifically for initiatives that prioritize women and girls and meet their unique needs. The Small Grants program will fund innovative projects, programs, events, and capacity building requests. For programs or projects, organizations may request up to $5,000. For events that are educational in nature, organizations may request up to $2,500. And for capacity building, organizations may request up to $2,500. Organizations with an open grant, which means that they have not submitted a final report for a current grant with the Community Foundation, including the Fund for Women and Girls, are eligible to apply for event support. An organization may apply for funding once per fiscal year, providing it continues to demonstrate alignment with our strategies and submits a satisfactory report. The Small Grants program is year-round, and the turnaround is quicker than our traditional grant process. Through this program, we aim to increase access to funding for organizations that may not meet the requirements of our rigorous competitive grant-making process and strengthen the capacity of smaller, developing organizations. There are no submission deadlines for the Small Grants program. The Fund for Women and Girls will accept and review applications on a rolling basis. The review process typically takes 2 months. If you're applying for funding between the months of January and April, please be advised that the review process may take up to 3 months, so please plan accordingly. Unlike our competitive grant-making process, there is no letter of inquiry for the Small Grants program. After successful completion of the eligibility questionnaire, organizations seeking support through our Small Grants program will need to complete the Small Grants program application through our grants management system, Founded. And now I'd like to pass it over to my colleague, Carol Guernsey, who is going to walk you through how to apply for a grant.
Thanks so much, Tricia. So here's another screenshot from our website. All of the information I'm going to present can be found in the grants section of our website under the heading Apply for a Grant. All competitive grant making occurs during our spring and fall grant cycles. However, not all areas of the Community Foundation participate in both cycles. In most cases, grant requests may be submitted in either the spring or fall cycle with the following exceptions. School year programs that serve the same cohort of children or youth for a school year must apply in the spring cycle. All proposals focused on the result all Fairfield County women and girls reach their full potential must apply in the spring cycle. Proposals focused on summer learning and summer enrichment programming must apply in the fall cycle and complete a special letter of inquiry or application process that opens in early September. In addition to aligning with one of our 5 result areas, all prospective grantees must meet some additional eligibility criteria. We will consider requests from charitable organizations that are tax exempt under Internal Revenue Code IRC Section 501c3, Organization and Public Charities under IRS Section 509A. Please also note that we will only consider requests from organizations located within Fairfield County or ones that directly benefit residents of Fairfield County. Organizations operating under a fiscal sponsor with a tax-exempt status under IRS Section 501c3 may also be considered. Although we do fund faith-based organizations, the Community Foundation will not consider requests to support religious or political causes. To clarify, your grant request cannot be for religious or political purposes. Moreover, we do not consider requests for capital campaigns or capital projects or any of the following: deficit financing, annual appeals, fundraising events, open space purchases, for-profit, parochial, charter, private, or individual public schools, nonprofit endowments, sponsorships, or individuals. If you have an open grant with our foundation, we will not consider a simultaneous request for a competitive grant. However, there are 2 exceptions to this. An organization can be awarded both a summer learning and enrichment program grant and a full year grant. Also, as Tricia mentioned earlier, you may apply for a Fund for Women and Girls Small Grant even if you have another open grant. You have an open grant if you're within the terms of the grant outlined in your grants agreement and or if you've not submitted the required interim and final reports, which is how you successfully close out a grant. Our letter of inquiry includes a short 7-question eligibility quiz that walks you through all the requirements and restrictions that I just mentioned so that you avoid submitting a request that's not eligible for consideration. Once we've determined that you meet the basic eligibility requirements, you may complete the remaining sections of the letter of inquiry. It's important to note that our grant-making process is very competitive and funding is limited. Furthermore, a decline may not be reflective of your program's design. When we assess requests, we look to see whether your program addresses systems change, has strong collaboration, strong engagement of customers, etc. And now I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth, who will walk you through the timeline for applying for a grant.
Thank you, Carol. So on this slide, you can see from a high-level perspective the timing for our spring cycle. LOIs will be submitted between January 20th and February 15th. Note that that's a change this year. We typically open the LOI period for the spring on January 15th, but since that is a holiday weekend, we are taking a little extra time to make some edits to the LOI and the application. You will all be glad, I'm sure, to know that we are simplifying the LOI in the process. Invitations to apply will be sent out to organizations in early March, with applications due at the end of March. Decisions will be reached in early June. The grant term for the spring cycle will be from July 1st to June 30th. Reports due on January 15th for the interim report and July 15th for the final report. Those of you who are interested in summer timing, as Carol mentioned, those grants will be available and the LOIs due at the end of September. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sharon, who's going to walk you through our three-step application process.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Our three-step application process. As of July 2015, the Community Foundation is using Foundant as its grants management system. Through Foundant, you will be able to submit all documentation related to competitive grants. These include your letter of inquiry, application, grant agreement, performance measurement addendums, and interim and/or final reports. First-time users will need to set up an account before being able to access the online LOI form. You may do this by visiting our website, fccfoundation.org, navigating to the grant section, clicking on Apply for a Grant, and clicking Create a New Account. If you're having an issue creating an account or filling out an LOI or application, you will find a webinar we created on the left-hand side of the page that can assist you and answer frequently asked questions. Once you have created an account, and during the open LOI period, you can log back in and start your letter of inquiry. Our letter of inquiry, or LOI, begins with a required quiz to determine your basic eligibility. Once you have determined that you meet the basic eligibility requirements, you can complete the remaining sections of the LOI. In addition to asking you to provide some basic organizational information, the LOI will ask you to describe the grant request and indicate the result area to which your proposed program or project contributes. Nonprofits may only submit one LOI in any given cycle. If you're interested in being considered for a general operating support grant, you should contact your program director during an open LOI period. Staff will review your LOI. If the proposed project meets the Community Foundation's priorities, you will be invited to submit a full grant application online through Foundant. Please note that an invitation does not guarantee a grant award. If you are awarded a grant, we will be using Foundant to collect all of our follow-up forms. Specifically, this refers to our signed grant agreements, our agreed-upon performance measures that you will be tracking data for in any interim and final reports. The grant agreement process. You will receive an award email through Foundant from myself. This award email will ask you to log in to your account, access the partially executed agreement, print it out, have the relevant party sign, and upload the completed executed document back onto Foundant. There's no need to mail anything. For the performance measurement addendum, you will note that our post-grant process now includes a negotiation of performance measures that will be included as an addendum follow-up to your grant agreement. You can expect to be in touch with your program officer for a quick call to discuss your submitted performance measures. After this call is complete, you will need to log back into Foundant to sign off on the measures you and your program officer agreed upon. Interim and final reports. Your grant agreement will outline if you have an interim report required to submit and when your interim and final report are due. You will again receive an email through Foundant from me asking you to log into your account to complete the form. This will generally become available at least a month before the due date, but likely a little earlier. Please note that due to the limitations of Foundant, these will be assigned to the same person who filled out and completed your LOI and application, so there may be some internal coordination necessary to complete and upload these documents. If you ever have any questions on the date your interim or final report is due, You can log into Foundant to double check. You can do this by looking at the due date for the follow-up or accessing your grant agreement at any time, which includes this information. Again, due to limitations of Foundant, we are only able to assign one follow-up form at a time. This means it is extra critical for you all to adhere to any deadlines and due dates for these forms. And here are some quick Foundant tips. Foundant regularly auto-saves. However, you might also find it useful to type the answers into a Word document and then paste them over whenever you are ready, as the text boxes might be hard to edit in. You can work on draft over time until ready to submit. You can log back in at any time to check the status of your LOI or application. However, we will notify you of any updates or forms requiring your attention through Foundant. We will be sending emails through Foundant. Please check your junk or spam folder. We will now be sending and receiving all forms electronically through Foundant. You'll be able to submit your grant agreements and reports through Foundant and will no longer be sending in paper versions to the Community Foundation. They have a wonderful support team who can answer your questions. You can find their number in the Contact Us portion of their website. And now I'm going to pass it back to Nancy, who is going to walk you through how to avoid some common pitfalls.
Thanks, Sharon. So my first tip is to be sure to pick the right type of letter of inquiry. As Tricia noted earlier, we award 4 types of grants: program support, capacity building, general operating support, and the new Fund for Women and Girls Small Grants. It's important to pick the right type of letter of inquiry when you start our grant process, because we're not able to move you from one type of support to another. And we ask for different types of information for each type of grant. If you're unsure of which category your request falls into, please contact Sharon Jones, and she'll connect you to a program officer who can advise you. Pay attention to the eligibility criteria in our eligibility quiz. It will save us both a lot of work if you don't submit requests that we will automatically have to decline because they don't meet our basic criteria. In particular, please be sure you do not have an open grant. Many grantees have unnecessarily created work for themselves by reapplying before they were eligible. Again, if you have any questions about when you are newly eligible, please feel free to contact Sharon Jones or your program officer. We recommend that you preview both the letter of inquiry and the application before you start out completing it, so that you can understand what kind of information we're asking for and where we want it. We read hundreds of letters of inquiry and applications, so I assure you we will never ask for the same information twice within an application. In fact, our new online grant forms allow us to copy over answers from your letter of inquiry into your application to save us both work. So if you find yourself copying and pasting text from one part of your application to another, please pause. You are probably misinterpreting the question. Feel free to contact a program officer if you need clarification about what information we're looking for. Make good use of the comments sections to explain omissions or answers that may cause concern. Some questions may not be applicable to your organization, but it's helpful to us if you put "not applicable" in the comment box. And maybe even let us know why it's not applicable if it's not obvious. Otherwise, we don't know if you just missed a question. And if questions are missing answers, we will follow up with you to tell you that your application is not complete. Lots of prospective applicants ask us for advice on how much money they should request. Typical grants range from $15,000 to $25,000, aside from the Fund for Women and Girls Small Grants program. Also, our grants in the area of the arts tend to be smaller because we have less money to award in this area. Grants way outside the upper range of our typical grant will cause us to come back to you to inquire whether a smaller grant will still meet your needs. We also look at the percent of the project budget the request to FCCF represents. Since we do not regularly provide annual or renewable grants, we're going to be concerned if we're being asked to fund a significant part of a program or project budget unless we are seeding a project with a very high likelihood that a different source will be supporting the project when our grant ends. Please keep in mind, as I said earlier, that we review hundreds of applications. It's a lot of reading. We appreciate short, clear, and even bulleted responses where appropriate. While it's tempting to give us extra narrative because you can easily cut and paste it from another application, that makes it really hard for our staff and committee members to sort through the narrative to find the information we need, and that can hurt your chances of being funded. Now I'd like to give you some tips for filling out the sections of the application where we're incorporating the concepts of results-based accountability, or RBA. I suspect that most of you on the call have been through an RBA training since we've been offering these for a couple of years now. If you have not, we do encourage you to attend those trainings, and you can find more information on our website under the Center for Nonprofit Excellence training calendar. We do have one coming up at the end of January on January 24th, but it is pretty fully subscribed, and we have a performance measurement training coming up in March. I also want to preface this section by advising you that with the introduction of results-based accountability, the program design and impact section of the application will be very hard for anyone to complete who does not have a very strong understanding of the program. If development staff or a grant writing consultant is completing the application for you, you'll want to ensure that they're able to work closely with appropriate program staff on this part of the application. When you access our letter of inquiry, you'll see that we ask, what is the purpose of the program for which you are seeking funding? What are you trying to accomplish? Many, many applicants in past cycles responded to this question with complete program descriptions or summaries of their grant requests. That's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for a very brief description of what your program intends to do. An example for a workforce development program might be as simple as, our program helps individuals with limited education and work experience to find a first job that is a platform for advancement and financial security. One sentence. We'll also ask you to identify which of the Community Foundation's result areas and the primary strategy your request contributes to. While we know there are programs that appear to align with more than one result area and multiple strategies, we're asking you to choose just one result area and the strategy your request is most aligned with. If you have any questions about that and want to discuss it with a program officer, we encourage you to do so. Our letter of inquiry also asks you to describe your program design. Here's where you should be detailed in describing all the key elements, activities, and services of your program. What do you do with your customers? How often? In what sequence? In what dosage? In other words, how much of a certain activity or service must your customers or clients get if they're to have a good outcome? What are the key elements of service or activity you believe a customer has to have if they're going to be successful? Your program design should line up with or flow from your program purpose. You should demonstrate that you have intentionally designed a program that will achieve your stated purpose. Bullets often work better in this part of the application than narrative. A few additional tips related to results-based accountability. We ask you to identify 3 to 5 performance measures across all 3 kinds of measures. How much, how well, and is anyone better off? Applicants find it really hard to believe that we want them to identify only 3 to 5 measures for their whole program, and we realize it's challenging to do that, but we really and truly want you to limit it to 3 to 5 measures. We know you have many more measures that you collect and that you need to evaluate your program's effectiveness. But we want you to prioritize 3 to 5 measures that speak to the program's purpose, the program design, and align with the Community Foundation's results and strategies that you have selected. If you're awarded a grant, we'll work with you to arrive at a final set of measures that we will attach to your grant agreement in an addendum. We want to be sure the measures that we select are meaningful to the Community Foundation as we try to understand and evaluate your work. But we also want to be really sure that they're meaningful for your own process of reflection and continuous improvement. Also on the subject of performance measures, we want you to tell us the measure, but not your target for the measure. In other words, we want to know that you're going to count the number of children served, not that you're going to serve 500 children. That you're going to report the percent of students who complete your program, not that 90% of students will complete the program. Don't worry, you're going to have an opportunity to report your actual data for your measures when you submit your reports. But for now, we just want to understand your intention to measure. Lastly, we strongly recommend that you choose one discrete program. Combining programs with different purposes, different program designs, and maybe even different customers will make it very hard to answer our questions and will make it especially difficult to identify a short list of meaningful performance measures. One last note, if you're struggling to identify performance measures, go back to your purpose and program design statements. We have found that organizations that are clear about their program purpose and program design have an easier time identifying meaningful measures. And now I'm going to pass it over to Elaine Mintz, who is going to moderate our question and answer period. Just going to take a minute because we have to read some slides.
Thank you, Nancy. And bear with me, I have a little bit of a cold. I'm going to begin with some questions that have already been submitted, but please feel free to continue submitting questions through the question function in the task pane. Remember, if your task pane has been minimized, you can open it back up by clicking on the small red arrow in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. So the first question is for Nancy Von Euler. So Nancy, this person is asking, can you apply for separate grants at the same time? For example, a capacity building grant and a program support grant at the same time.
Great question. You cannot apply, in the specific example, that would be a no. You can't apply for a program support grant and a capacity building grant at the same time, but you would be able to apply for example, a summer learning and enrichment program grant and at the same time apply for a full year program support grant. Or you could apply for a program support grant in one area, and if you happen to have a small grant eligible program that aligns with the Fund for Women and Girls priorities, you could apply for a Fund for Women and Girls small grant as well.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, next question, again for Nancy. Is RBA required as a measurement tool, and do you have a report card?
Ooh, good question. First, is it required as a measurement tool? I like to refer to it as a measurement framework. It gives you some language that we'd like to put your measurements into, and it tells you the kinds of measures we're interested in having you report. But it crosswalks very well with other measurement frameworks, logic models, for example. So we don't think that you should find any difficulty in taking things that you're already measuring and reporting them to us in an RBA framework. And if you have any specific concerns and questions, I think you're welcome to reach out to a program officer and we can talk through that with you. But we find that it crosswalks very well with other frameworks that people are using. Do we have a report card? We are aspiring to have a report card. that we will put up on our website very soon. We have a data analyst who started with us in September, who is working to pull together population level indicators that relate to the results and strategies that we propose in our results framework. We'll be tracking those over time. As you know, if you've been through an RBA training, at the population level, we wouldn't expect to see changes quickly or improvements quickly, but we will track trend lines and we'll demonstrate those. We'll share those with you on our website so that we can see where our work together is going, where we're being effective, and where we may need to consider new partnerships, new strategies to be able to turn the curve in a more meaningful way.
Thanks again, Nancy. Now I have two questions for Tricia Hyacinth. First off, are all leadership programs at a parochial school eliminated even if the needs, fit, and results align?
Thank you for that question. And so currently, if we do not consider requests for parochial, charter, private, or individual public schools. However, if your school partners with a nonprofit organization to run the actual leadership program, then the nonprofit organization could apply.
This session is being recorded for audio issue reporting.
We apologize for that interruption. Not sure what happened there.
But just in case you did not hear my response to the question regarding parochial schools, currently we do not fund requests or entertain requests from parochial, charter, private, or public schools. My suggestion would be to partner with a nonprofit organization to run your leadership development program. They can in turn apply to the foundation for funding.
Thank you, Tricia. Now another question for you. Can you apply for a grant for the Fund for Women and Girls if you have an existing general operating support grant in process?
So yes, you can apply for a small grant through the Fund for Women in
Audio issue recording has finished.
So sorry about these interruptions.
So the question was, can you apply for a grant from FWG if you have an existing general operating support grant in process? And the answer is you can apply for a small grant through the Fund for Women and Girls. Remember that this is for up to $5,000. However, you cannot apply to the Fund for Women and Girls for a competitive grant if you have applied for a general operating support grant in the same time frame.
Thank you, Tricia. And now we have another question around summer learning, and I'm going to direct that question to Elizabeth Gehring. The question is, are summer learning grants can they only be applied for in the fall cycle?
And the answer to that is yes. We only provide grants for our summer learning programs in the fall in order, frankly, to help you be able to deliver the services. When we have them in the fall, we're able to get you the funding in January. That gives you enough time and enough notice to adequately plan for the grant and for the program that's coming up that following summer, and be able to do justice to it rather than finding out at the last minute whether or not you have the funding. As a result, it's done only in the fall. This year, the LOIs are going to be available in the September timeframe. So my suggestion to you is to keep an eye open in the fall for when those LOIs might be open for the summer learning programs.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for submitting the questions. We have a couple more. The next one is for Nancy Von Euler. What is the typical award amount for a general operating support grant?
Typical award amounts across all our grant programs are, or our major programs, the program support, capacity building, and general operating support is $15,000 to $25,000, as I said earlier. Somewhat less in the area of the arts because we have less funding to award in that area. So grants range from $7,500 to $15,000 in that area more typically. There's not, general operating supports are not at a higher level necessarily than other types of grants.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. And another question around, I think it was Tricia who referenced grants, applying for grants in the same time frame. And this person is asking, what does the same time frame mean?
So we have 2 cycles per year, spring and fall, and so you would need to only apply, aside from the exceptions that we've noted, Summer Learning and the Fund for Women and Girls Small Grants program, you would need to apply for only 1 grant in each of those cycles.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see any other questions, so I think it's now time to close the webinar. So thank you for joining us for the information session. Remember, most of the information we shared today is available on our website in the grants section, and we will be posting a recording of this webinar as well. If you have questions at any time during the grant application process, feel free to contact Sharon Jones. Sharon will either be able to address your question herself, or she will connect you to the appropriate member of our program team. Thank you, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.